So let me get this straight. A size 8 fishing hook is smaller than a size 6 fishing hook, but a 5/0 fishing hook is much bigger than both. Howdy y'all, Randy here with Aquaholic Fishing. I know fishing hook sizing can be a little bit confusing, but stick around. I'm gonna show you an easy way of remembering what size fishing hooks you need for what type of fish you are fishing for, and I'll have you landing more fish in just a few minutes. Who can we thank or give credit to with this crazy fishing hook sizing system? It came from a 19th century Reddit system. That is the scale that we use today. They knew during that time that it was pretty jacked up, and so they changed it. But just like many things in the fishing industry, it circled back to the original scale, and that's what we're stuck with using today. If you guys are mechanics, it's kind of like a mechanic system. You have standard sizing and you have metric sizing. The fishing hook system is kind of similar. I like to start at number 1. Number 1 is kind of a center point. I go from 1 to 32. 1 is being my biggest hook, 32 is being my smallest hook. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm going from that 1/0 and going all the way up to 27/0. 1/0 being my smallest, 27/0 being my biggest. So we have the standard system and the 0 system. Again, starting at 1 on the standard system and going to 32. 1 is my biggest fishing hook size. 32 is my smallest fishing hook size. If I go back to that number 1 in the center, I go 1/0 and I go all the way up to 27/0. 1/0 being my smallest, 27/0 being my biggest. So in the 0 sizes, as the number grows, so does the size of the fishing hook. The number 32 fishing hook was the smallest commercially produced fishing hook of all time. Think about 2 millimeters. If you don't understand millimeters, 1/8 of an inch basically was the size of that number 32 fishing hook. Whereas a 27/0 fishing hook is this big giant hook that a lot of times comes with a chain for wahoo, tuna, marlin, sailfish, things of that nature. Back in the day, or even now, that number 32 was probably for tying like dry flies, nymphs, midges. That thing probably went for a couple of pennies back in the day, where that 27/0 fishing hook is going for about $300 today. The crazy thing is just when we think we have it figured out between that standard and that 0 system, is no two manufacturers have the same sizing characteristics. Meaning, if I have Eagle Claw number 32 here, and then I have a 6th Sense number 32 here, they're not the same across the board per manufacturer. How do I get around that? I go with like a Gamakatsu, or I go with an Eagle Claw. I go with a specific hook manufacturer that stays to the same sizing pattern with their hooks, no matter if they're standard or 0 fishing hook sizes. If you go in between different manufacturers, you're gonna add another layer of confusion because different manufacturers have different sizing criteria. So a 1/0 fishing hook with 6th Sense is not going to be the same size for a 1/0 fishing hook with Gamakatsu per se. Find a brand that you like, find a hook point that you like with that brand, and that sizing within that brand will be the same pretty much, no matter if it's an 0 size or if it's a standard size fishing hook. Fishing hook sizing in general for the species that you're trying to target. So if you're thinking panfish, crappie, perch, bluegill, sunfish, I think somewhere between a number 6 and a number 10 is the perfect sizing criteria, is the hook that you're going to want to identify with. Whereas when you're fishing for bass, I'm fishing for bass a lot. I use anywhere from a number 1, then I can go to a 1/0. 1/0 to 5/0 is usually the perfect range of fishing hooks for the largemouth, smallmouth, or any type of hybrid species of bass. It's somewhat similar when you're fishing for catfish. If you like to target catfish, blues, yellows, whatever it is that you're looking on the catfish variety, starting at usually a 2/0 and going up to like a 7 or 8/0 as far as that size of hook is perfect when you're fishing for any species of catfish. If you're into the offshore fishing, you're usually going to start at like a 6 or 7/0 hook, even from jetties or piers, And as you're going out there into the deep water for marlin, sailfish, tuna, you're going all the way up and potentially up to the highest point with that 27-aught hook. You can see in that illustration that we have up now, you can see where the gauge sizing is at. It's going to be a light wire or heavy wire gauge is pretty much the way it's going to be. As it goes down onto that shank, you see those little bait keepers. Those bait keepers are just small barbs that are going to help you keep your bait on that hook. And when the fish comes up and pulls onto that hook or onto that hook point, it's going to keep your bait somewhat intact. They're not going to be able to just rip it off as easily. You have the eye of the hook where you're going to do your line tie. You have the shank of the hook coming down. The shank of the hook is always going to be where it goes straight all the way to where it begins to curve. Where it begins to curve all the way back over to the other side where the barb is at, that's going to be the bend of the hook. From the point back to the shank is going to be the gap. You're going to have a barb or a barbless hook. In this illustration, it does have a barb that helps keep the fish on the hook. And then you have the throat of the hook, which basically goes from the bend all the way up to the gap with an imaginary line. All right, we're going to start with treble hooks. The treble hook is a type of fishing hook with 3 separate points extending from one single shank. We got treble hooks attached to both of these lures. The treble hook are extremely good at catching fish, but it will also damage the fish considerably. You can also change these out for inline hooks. If you're fishing with the treble hook, my best advice would be ensure you plan on keeping your catch because you're going to damage the catch, their gill plates, their lips, their eyes. The next hook we're looking at here is the circle hook. You can tell it's the circle hook by the way this offset happens with the eye of the hook, as well as how it turns inwards with the point of the hook. Something very important with these is you do not need to set the hook. Once the fish bites this hook and takes off the other direction, this will pretty much self-set that hook into the fish, and all you're going to have to do is just reel down and continue reeling in. It kind of gives you an advantage if you are not very skilled at fishing. It will hook the fish for you and you don't have to put a lot of extra work or thought into setting the hook. You just reel down, reel your fish in, and it'll be placed perfectly, usually in the side of the fish's mouth. These are all offset hooks, right? So you can see the distance between the hook point and the shank here. On this one is completely different than the rest of these hooks. That gap in through here is an extra wide gap or a wide gap when we're talking about this smaller one. This is your standard gap. Wide gap hooks are predominantly used when fishing for largemouth, smallmouth bass, Guadalupe bass, shoal bass, things of that nature, but you can use a wide gap hook or an extra wide gap hook for many different species of fish, usually dependent upon the weight and bait profile that you're using. These hooks here are all J hooks, so worm hooks, Aberdeen hooks. Some are going to have a longer shank, some are going to have a shorter shank, as you can see on these. Some will have small barbs. All these J hooks are really good when you're fishing for any type of species with live bait and minnows and things like that that you need to keep alive because you're not putting that heavy wire gauge through those fish. That light wire gauge is less intrusive on them and they will swim for a long period of time. And there you have it, guys. Pretty much anything and everything you need as far as a hook selection, hook sizing, and for a novice or a beginner angler, this is pretty much all you need to know. You'll start to get a little more comfortable and confident with these, and then you can start to stray off a little bit, getting into more hooks, different sizing of hooks, and you'll adjust as time goes on. If this video made you 1% smarter or helped you and provided value in any way, please consider hitting that like button or subscribe. You guys have a great day. Thanks for stopping by, and we appreciate you here at Aquaholic Fishing.